I live in a town that is relatively safe, aside from college students. I always feel comfortable walking places alone until one walks. It was during the clown craze, which I thought was fake until they said they were going to a school in my town. They were in my town but not at school. I was walking to our lane library to play games because I have no game consoles or computers at home. There was a small open spot of land right next to the library, and I was there. I look across the street the same time a person looked at me. But they were dressed as a clown. My worst nightmare. It held a machete and turned its head, and started laughing. I was horrified. It started running across the street. All I could do was try to run. I was a short 11-year-old 4 feet 10 inches. The clown seemed to be around 6 feet 3 inches and fast. While it ran, it laughed. After a little, I was so scared I couldn't scream. I just ran to the library and hoped it would leave. When I got inside, I looked out the big window. It was standing head sideways waving his machete. If it weren't for me having played soccer, I probably wouldn't have survived to turn 14 and finally grow. I never told anyone. Story 2. I was outside of my house, sometime near January on a full moon. This was when some of the clown things were starting to die off and come back in April 2017. I never believed in them, and still don't, but that night I think I did. I walked inside my house with me, my brother, and my friend, who we'll call Kyle. Kyle was from the Dominican Republic and had always believed in the paranormal, so we had a good bit in common. We walked into my brother's room, since it was the largest, and were watching Logan Paul's controversial Suicide Forest video. Once it was done, Kyle remembered it was a full moon, and that the clowns were out tonight. I called bullshit and told him it was all hoaxes and insane people on highways. He doubled me by saying that, if I didn't believe, they'd get me. I laughed at his remark to that and told him to stop thinking all that stuff. That's when my brother, who I'll call Josh, sat up and said that I was just a pussy. I told him he was a jerk, and that it wasn't funny. We got into a conversation for a good 10 minutes, when Kyle finally says, "Go prove it." I said, "Okay." And told them that I would be back. I know just the place to prove it. There was a little place down the road that was put there for a park essentially. It wasn't funded, the only thing it had was a small walk bridge that was pretty nice. We called it the Duck Pond, but it was Seneca Creek. I'm giving all the location details to provide you a better understanding of how scary this place would have been at night. I left the house, got onto my bike, and rode off 2 blocks away. At the entrance of the park is another set of woods that is private property, for houses on the water, and some abandoned houses inside. The entrance is easy to see, can't miss it, and personally, it looks pretty. As I was walking up to the entrance, I had noticed a foul odor. Keep in mind that this is wildlife, where things die and decompose right there. It wasn't helped with the stench of trash, reeking from the trash island. I was about to walk into the park when I shit you not something had spoken in a low, somewhat luring voice.
"Hey there, kiddo. Why don't you come over here?"
This was when I went into fucking panic mode. I am someone who isn't scared off so easily, but it was the thought that it could be someone out there. The unknown, which scared me. I turned towards the small patch of bushes near the entrance, and I see something crouched over deep in the bushes, facing me. I couldn't tell if it was a clown or demon. I didn't fucking care at this point. Even thinking about it is making me paranoid. As I was going to man up and see what it was, it speaks again.
"That's right, come over here."
And I hear a sheathing of a blade. That's when I knew it was time to book it. I instantly wailed out in fright, almost pissing myself, and crashed into that bike. I say if I hadn't been riding for many years and built up muscle to power out of there, I would have been done. I floor it back to my house. At this point, my body is in complete hysteria, and Kyle said that once I opened the door, I was not comprehensible. It took me a minute to calm down, and realize I shouldn't be so scared. I explained to Kyle and Josh what had just happened, and we agreed to go back tomorrow and fuck up whoever was there. We never did, and I never go there at night. The creepy man in the fucking bushes, whoever you are, if you're still out there, let's not meet again.
Story 3.
I don't know what I was thinking. It seemed like an innocuous idea: find one of the clowns, corner it, and find out why they're doing all of this. I would become a media sensation. My findings might have led to blowing the entire clown sensation wide open. All because of my bravery. I'd be a hero. At first, my town seemed to be a sacred land that no clown dare touch. It was a God-fearing, blue-collar town where everyone knew their neighbors and the postman could eat for an entire week thanks to the housewives and their generosity. There was one school, a Baptist-run institution that surprisingly focused more on education than religion. Everyone who has ever lived in the town went to that school, just like everyone here got their first job at the window factory. It was simply how things were. Some call it trite. We called it home. Sure, there was a crime. One time, for example, the little Dexterly's oldest boy lashed out and broke 3 windows at the church. It was all over the news and the papers. People would gossip, of course. However, no one chastised him for his actions. Instead, everyone was supportive and got him the help he needed. I'm not trying to brag. This was just a genuinely friendly and nurturing community. When the news broke that a clown was seen sitting on the steps of the school the other night, it sent a ripple throughout the peaceful town. Everyone had been following the stories, yet no one was concerned about seeing them here. Why would we be? We all knew it was a prank, albeit a stupid one that would fade away into obscurity. It was chalked up to the Dexterly boy lashing out again, until the next sighting. And the next. Then another. Then 2 clowns together. It wasn't until a dog was found mutilated in the middle of the town center that the population collectively began to panic. Curfews were enforced. The shops closed early. School and church service was reduced to twice a week. Had someone passed through after dusk, they would have found a ghost town. Fear was running the city now. I wanted it to stop. My plan was simple. Every night since the first incident, the clowns have been seen on the school grounds or the church grounds. All I would need to do is stay out of sight of the sheriff while I waited to see a clown. Then, simply run upon it and find out what the hell they're in the town for. Easy. Darkness had finally fallen the night I decided to act. I've never believed in guns, nor taking a weapon to an unarmed fight, but I have to admit, the hysteria was beginning to grate on me at that point. I went out with a wooden Louisville Slugger and a flashlight. It was slightly after 10 p.m., and most of the residents were already sleeping in hopes of seeing daylight sooner. That made it easy for me to avoid the sheriff, as I was able to cut through backyards and hide in driveways when the patrol cars got too close. This was a small town. On a regular night, I could walk to the school in less than 10 minutes, but law enforcement wasn't taking any chances. It took me almost an hour to reach the school, and when I did, I was upset to see nothing waiting for me. Nothing. I posted up in a nearby tree that had a clear view of the front of the building and got comfortable. Something in my gut told me I was going to have a long wait ahead of me. I wish I could say that a few hours into my shift, a clown came, and I was able to get my answers. I do, but I fell asleep. I woke up on the lawn under the tree to blinding daylight and a gun in my face. The officer was stern and visibly shaken but gentle enough to me. At the station, he gave me coffee and an excellent selection of pastries and fruits to choose from for breakfast. In other cities, this might be seen as them buttering up a suspect to get them to talk, but not here. This was Southern hospitality at its finest. We talked for a while about everything going on with the clown situation. The conversation wasn't focused on my actions as I had expected. The officer was more interested in what my thoughts were on how to deal with this clown situation that was currently paralyzing the town. I think he saw my actions as more brave than incriminating as I wanted. I could still be a hero. After a couple of hours, we agreed on the situation. The sheriff's office would turn a blind eye to any investigations I wanted to conduct alone even after hours. However, any criminal activity would be penalized to the fullest extent, especially assault. He made it very clear that no matter who was behind this, I wasn't allowed to touch a single hair on their head. It was a reasonable compromise. That night, I returned to my post. It was a lot easier without having to stay out of sight. A simple nod of acknowledgement was the only exchange I had with the officers patrolling the streets. When I made it to the school, I found no signs of life yet again. I climbed the tree and settled in for a long night. About 2 hours into my wait, I still hadn't seen any signs of a clown. My eyes were getting heavier by the minute, so I decided to inspect the grounds and see if I could discover anything indicating a clown might be in the area. When I jumped to the ground from the lowest branch, I was greeted by a tall figure wearing a bright, shiny blue bodysuit that was bedazzled with buttons and patterns. I'd be lying if I said I didn't fall back against the tree, gasping for air. All confidence left my body as my eyes met its face. I had been expecting a porcelain mask, not a white human face with red lips and blue hair staring back at me. The lack of a red nose unsettled me as well. This wasn't the clown I was prepared for. I couldn't move. My body had shut down on me when I needed it most. The clown didn't move, didn't even blink. It just stared at me intensely with bright green eyes and a smile that was permanently affixed on its face, a standoff. After a few more minutes, the clown reached one of its white-gloved hands out to me. I looked to its side, and then back to those oddly bright eyes without budging an inch. Nothing about the clown had changed aside from its arm. The clown still didn't blink. It still had that fucking smile. It nodded a couple of times towards its hand like it wanted me to grab it. I was confused, but with the hope of humanity being behind the costume, I reached out to shake the outstretched hand. Before I was able to lock palms with the clown fully, I was met with a light shock that radiated up my forearm. I screamed. The clown arched its head back, grabbed its belly, and laughed at me. It sounded like there was a broken squeaky toy lodged in its throat. The electric jolt must have been enough to revitalize my body as I jumped up and shoved the clown away from me as hard as I could. It fell back exaggeratedly, flailing its large white shoes up and sliding on its rear end across the grass. After a brief pause and a look of disbelief, the clown began to silently cry while rotating its fists under its squinting eyes and stomping its heels into the ground. I was annoyed with the dramatics and started yelling at it. Nothing remotely coherent came from my mouth, just a smorgasbord of profanities and blame. Once I relieved my pent-up frustrations, the clown stopped pouting and began its squeaky laugh again, but this time it was accompanied by another noise. A louder noise that wasn't coming from its mouth. The air around me was overtaken by a sound that was similar to a million cicadas clicking in a deep whisper. I couldn't hear the clown in front of me any longer. Everything was this overtaken by whatever was making this background noise. I fell back again, grasping my head in pain and attempting to cover my ears. Bang, my heart stopped. I looked up, and the clown in front of me was now a Rorschach painting across the grass. My interrogating officer was standing next to me with a shotgun. "Run!" he yelled at me as he grabbed my arm and yanked me to my feet. Surrounding the entire were clowns of all shapes and sizes, walking towards us with their mouths wide open, slightly facing the ground. We barely made it to the station, circumnavigating all the clowns that overtook the streets. It's been 38 days since that incident. We've been barricaded in the station, taking rotating shifts in the camera room. The clowns, they've taken on our everyday lives. We watch them go shopping, walk dogs, go to school, and work. It's like they're trying to replace us. The only peculiar thing they do is surround the station at night and laugh in unison. All night, until the sun rises. Then they continue on as nothing happened. We've got full utility access here, and have been keeping up on the news. We know it's spreading. I fear that my actions that night may have caused them to resent humans. I wanted to be the hero, but I can't find a way to stop this. Greenville is gone. Don't let the media fool you. Stay away from here. More importantly, don't go near the clowns.